Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's good to be back. It is good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I am glad to be back. I'm excited to be back. I was planning originally on making a earnings video for Nintendo, of course, like I did for Sony and for Microsoft. However, I've been going through some mental health struggles lately. Kind of pushed me off of Twitter for a while. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to get a YouTube live chat in this week, but here on Friday, I think I've decided I'm going to go ahead and do it and give it a shot and see how it goes. So we can talk about the Nintendo earnings here, right? We can go into all of those juicy info and details here. Of course, that's not the only thing that we can talk about. We can talk about anything in the video game industry if you want. Doesn't have to be related to Nintendo, but with us just getting their earnings as well as the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom launching today, I think there's a lot of excitement and interest around Nintendo at the moment. So, a couple things off the top to highlight out of Nintendo's earnings. I'm not going to go into like crazy in-depth detail here. I'm just going to kind of highlight the main big talking points, and then if you guys have any other in-depth questions or anything, we can go into that. In regards to hardware, Nintendo Switch is now past 125.62 million units. Absolutely astounding. 125 million consoles. Incredible. Software also is unbelievable because lifetime it is now past 1 billion units of software. Absolutely stunning number, to be perfectly honest with you. The amount of software that Switch pushes, particularly for first-party games, is just incredible. A couple highlights in terms of shipments for some games that Nintendo highlighted. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet have now shipped over 22.10 million units. Splatoon 3 is at 10.67 million units, and Nintendo Switch Sports at 9.6 million units. Another thing that people were looking at is the new releases, right, that came out in this last quarter from Nintendo. We got a couple here. We got Fire Emblem Engage, which is at 1.61 million units, and Metroid Prime Remastered, which is at 1.09 million units. In regards to those two, I'll be honest, I think 1 million for Metroid Prime Remastered is pretty good. I saw a lot of people wondering if that's a good result or not, or if it's a bad result. I personally consider 1 million for that to be pretty strong. But I also didn't have super high, huge sales expectations for it in the first place. The Metroid Prime games were never huge, like giant sellers anyways. This is a very old game, and also it was very limited physical shipments for quite a while. For quite a while, this thing was hard to find in stock, and it launched digitally first. So, and I know with Nintendo games, a lot of people like to get physical Nintendo games. I don't expect this to have tremendously great legs either. I'm sure it's still going to go up. It's still going to ship some. You'll probably see a boost for it again once we get close to Metroid Prime 4's release date. But yeah, I think anyone that was expecting crazy numbers out of Prime Remastered were probably, a bit overestimating things. In terms of Fire Emblem Engage, the results are okay, is how I would put it. They're not amazing, especially like whenever you look at how much Three Houses and stuff was able to sell. But Engage is also a little bit different of a Fire Emblem. They kind of dropped a lot of the more RPG mechanics in Engage. And not that it doesn't still have some of those, but it's much more, I would say, closer to like the old school tactics style. Not that Fire Emblem like Three Houses wasn't a tactics game, but also, it had a lot of like role play at the school and things like that. So, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Nintendo keeps doing games like Engage, or if they kind of go back more to that Three Houses type of game moving forward. But this isn't a bad result for Engage. It's just not like, blows you away. So that's kind of the highlights off of the top. There's, of course, a ton of other things that we can go into today besides Nintendo, a ton of other topics. If this is your first time as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and I get to as many questions as I possibly can. There's going to be a few ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. The two other ways that you can do that is there's going to be a super chat option. You type a donation, whatever you want. It pops into super chat with the, and I get to super chats immediately. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained right now. I'll get to super chats immediately. And also the other way to do that is going to become a channel member. If you become a channel member, I guarantee that all channel members get at least one question answered per stream. Channel memberships are $4.99. So if you ever decide that you want to become a member, every chat, it doesn't have to be a super chat. You just type a question. I can see who's all members, and I'll guarantee you a question per chat. All right. And I think we have a couple super chats off of the top. Benji here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Saying, hi, Benji. Tears of the Kingdom hype is insane. Can't stop seeing tweets of people with games, special editions, lines with hundreds waiting to buy the game in front of stores. Your sales predictions, please. Yeah, the Tears of the Kingdom hype is astronomical. And I sent out a tweet about this. I sent out a tweet, I think, last night, and I was saying how, you know, this is going to break records. Like, it's going to be a record-breaking launch for Nintendo. And I saw a lot of people, you know, saying, oh, it's going to be big, but it's not going to sell as much as Breath of the Wild, for example. And you know, long-term legs, we'll have to see, right? Hitting 30 million, that's, you know, it's not an easy bar. We need to see how the legs are. But launch is going to absolutely crush and destroy Breath of the Wild's launch. It's going to be, like, the gap is going to be utterly enormous. Now, in terms of lifetime sales, or not even lifetime, let's do, like, launch sales. I'll tell you where I'm thinking, and then we'll also run a poll on this. I'm predicting it's going to be probably the second biggest launch ever for Nintendo. Still behind Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but there's a chance it could beat Scarlet and Violet, to be honest with you. I see some people saying it won't even be close. I kind of disagree with that. I think it's in play. You know, the Zelda hype right now is insane. There's a couple things. So, first of all, I think it's absolutely going to beat the launch of Animal Crossing, which was already insane, right? The Animal Crossing launch was ridiculous. It was way bigger than what any of us thought it would be, even those of us that were very confident in Animal Crossing. I think Tears of the Kingdom absolutely beats that. Pokemon, though, the problem is that has two versions of the game. And yes, the vast majority of people are only buying one, right? They're either buying Scarlet or they're buying Violet. But there are still definitely people that buy that double pack, right? Or buy the two different games separately. And it's just, you know, that there's that. Plus you have the combination of the holidays. It's like, because you always are shipping very heavy during the holidays anyways, because you want to make sure you have units on store shelves for gift givers. So for me, Pokemon is still like a big question if it can actually top that. I do expect for sure it to beat Animal Crossing. The question here is if it can do that. Now let's run a poll. Let's run our first poll because I'm curious what you guys think. How big will Tears of the Kingdom launch? All right, I'm going to give you a few options here. We'll go number one, bigger than Pokemon Scarlet/Violet. I gotta abbreviate it because it doesn't let it. We'll say number two, biggest, below Pokemon. We'll say another option, lower than Animal Crossing. Okay, so those are your three options. How big will Tears of the Kingdom launch? Number one, bigger than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You think it's going to be the biggest launch ever for Nintendo? Number two, it's going to be, you know, still going to get that number two position, but it's not going to quite beat Pokemon. Or do you think it's going to be lower than Animal Crossing? Here we go. Oops. There we go. All right, first poll is live in the chat. I'm personally right now going right below Pokemon, but we'll see. Split End 89 with a member for 1 month chat here. Dude, thanks so much, man. Benji, love you, dude. You rock. Give me a real announcement. It should be there, and a dream announcement from this rumored PlayStation show. Okay, yeah. So the rumors are very heavy that the week of the 25th is going to be that PlayStation showcase. That's coming from Jeff Grubb. Now, you know, there's been this debate for a while. Where is a PlayStation showcase? That's been going on for like more than a year. But like that's really started revving up ever since like early this year when Jeff Grubb started saying that he was hearing PlayStation was going to have a showcase early in the year before E3 time. And we've all been like, okay, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? Well, Grubb has recently stated that it's going to be the week of May 25th. So coming up here very, very soon. We'll see if it's true, but I have every reason to believe him. Now, a real announcement, a should be there, and a dream announcement. Okay, so a realistic one, and first of all, thanks SplitEnd89. Thanks for help modding the channel and being a great friend. Okay, a realistic announcement is going to be... Listen, the realistic announcement is supposed to be boring, so this is going to be a boring answer, but you're going to get the Spider-Man 2 release date, right? That's the realistic one. Obviously, Spider-Man 2 is going to be there in a huge way. They're going to show this game off like crazy. I don't think it's going to be just a short 2-minute trailer. I think they're going to show you like a big gameplay segment. You know, they're not going to like spoil the whole game or anything, but I don't think this is just going to be like a 2-minute cinematic trailer. I think they'll give you a big showing of Spider-Man 2, and they're going to put a release date on it. So that's your realistic 100%. Lock it in. There's no chance it's not there. Spider-Man 2 with a release date in a big way. Now, a should be there would be the Last of Us multiplayer game, right? That's one that should be there. You would expect to finally see the Last of Us multiplayer. It's a game that's been in development, we know, for quite a while, years actually. We've still never seen it. They've only shown concept art on it. We still don't actually know when it's going to come out. You know, Neil Druckmann has said things like we'll see it this year, but he hasn't outright said it's launching this year. So that's a game. There's a slim chance it could not be there if this is actually a game coming next year or something. But it's a game that should be there. If it wasn't there, that would be quite the surprise to me. So we should see that Naughty Dog, The Last of Us multiplayer game. And in terms of a dream announcement, I'm sticking with PlayStation first party because it's just hard to predict what... It's hard to predict what third parties will show up at the showcase, so I'm going to stick with first party on this one. I think a dream announcement for me... I'm just trying to be also realistic here. I mean, either... This isn't going to sound super exciting because it's a game that we all expect, but I'd love to see Ghost of Tsushima 2 announced. Or I would love to see Ben's new IP announced. So I would say one of those two. There's some other dream ones that would be amazing, like what's Cory Barlog's new IP that he's working on, but I just think it's way too early for that. I could be wrong. Maybe this thing's way further in development than I expect, but I just think that's like so far into dream territory that it's just like very unlikely. I'd love to see what Naughty Dog's next big single-player project is, you know, after The Last of Us Part 2. You know, they did The Last of Us Part 1, which was a remake, but we haven't had a brand new single-player experience from them since Part 2 launched. But again, with the multiplayer game, plus them doing Part 1, you know, I just don't think that we're near close enough to get that announcement yet either. So I would say two that are definitely not by any means guaranteed to be there, so it does fall into the dream category, but do at least have a shot. I'd say Ghost of Tsushima 2 or what Sony Ben's new IP is. But I'm excited for it. I'm very excited. Eve here with a $6.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Eve. Hey, Benji, it was worried to hear that you had hard times last week. I'm hoping you're doing better by now. Love your content. Stay strong, man. So I am doing, I would say, not great. But I would say I'm not at the lowest spot that I was. So I'll just tell you guys what happened. because, some of you might be able to relate to this, and maybe it'll help you just, knowing someone else goes through this. So as you guys know, I struggle with anxiety and depression, have for my whole life, basically. And what happened is that this is going to sound like a fairly minor thing to most people, but if you have anxiety, you know how this can happen. So I had an infection in my arm, right? And I had gotten a tiny, tiny cut at work. Didn't think anything of it. It was just this tiny little cut. And, for a few days, it was just seemed like nothing. Because, again, this thing is not big. It's not talking I got this huge gash in my arm or something like that. It's a small little cut. And, so I was just ignoring it. Didn't really think anything about it. We all get little cuts all the time. Turns out I actually got an infection, right? And that ended up being a staph infection. Now, for a normal person, I went to the doctor. They were like, yeah, it's no big deal. It's not a super bad staph infection or anything like that. We're just going to put you on antibiotics and, you'll be fine. For a normal person, you just move on with your day. If you're someone like me with extreme anxiety and a bit of a hypochondriac at times, it was a massive trigger for me. And my anxiety has spiraled out of control since then. So I'm actually like all healed up now. Like the cut in my arm is like completely healed. I'm good to go. It's already over with. But for people that have very bad anxiety, once you get triggered, it sometimes takes a while to wear back off. And I am still fully in that, hardcore anxiety mode. I have my ups and downs. There's some days and some parts of the day since then that I feel like completely normal. But then there's times where my anxiety is absolutely pounding, and if any of you have ever had really bad panic attacks or anxiety, which I've had off and on throughout my whole life, I'm sure that this all sounds very familiar to you, right? It might not have been a trigger from an arm infection. It could be anything. Some people, it's not medical stuff that sets off their anxiety. Some people, it's social, whatever. For me, it's medical stuff, and it led to a very, very rough few days. So I am sorry to everyone that was worried about me, because I did have some people, kind of like reaching out and mentioning things. I am, I'm healthy. I'm good to go. It's just I got to get past this wave of anxiety that I'm currently experiencing. So thank you, everyone, though, who has been reaching out and all the kind words and everything. I really, really appreciate it. And then just a cute sticker also from Eve saying, "You are amazing." Well, thank you so much, Eve. Highlander here with their 1 month member not super chat, but just question. Thank you so much, Highlander. With the ROG Ally announcement video and the fact it is Windows based and has 3 months of Game Pass, will this be bigger than Steam Deck? Love to know. Well, you know what? I could see this being a very real actual success story, which is interesting, because whenever the ROG Ally first got announced, just rumored, or not even announced, it was like this kind of, because they didn't do the full reveal till later, but when they first, I guess announced is the right word, when they first said, hey, there's going to be this Windows based, gaming handheld, before we got the price and all of that stuff, it was like, okay, cool, but it was more on like the peripheral of my vision kind of thing, you know what I mean? It was like, okay, this is some small little niche thing that maybe a few people are going to buy, but I had no expectations for it, to be honest with you. However, as I saw that interest start building online, because the specs really excited people, I was like, maybe this could be a thing that actually we see some success on, because, we've seen Steam Deck be very, very well. This handheld gaming PC market seems to be something that's growing and people are finding interest in. So I started being like, maybe I do need to pay attention to this. The other thing, though, that I think has been pretty brilliant, honestly, that this team has done is exactly what you mentioned, the partnership that they are seemingly doing with Xbox on the marketing of this. This is pretty brilliant. People have been asking for quite a while, not in a massive way, right? Not in terms of oh, you're going to sell 30 million of these. But I see all the time a very regular thing that the Xbox community says are hey, I'd love to have a handheld Xbox of some sort, a handheld Game Pass machine. You see people posting that all the time. It's a regular thing, especially since the rise of Game Pass. you even saw earlier than that, right? Years and years, people have been saying, back even when like the Vita was around and stuff, I wonder what an Xbox handheld could do. But especially since that rise to Game Pass, I've seen a lot of people be like, man, I would love to have one. This is almost like it's not made by Xbox, but you can tell by the way they're marketing it. It's almost like, hey, we're advertising this as like the mobile Xbox thing that you guys have been asking for. So I actually think that this might be able to find some serious success. If a lot of these Game Pass games run great on it, it being coming bundled with it, I actually could see this really being successful. Now, more successful than Steam Deck, I think, is a big ask. So I would say I'm not going to quite go there. Steam Deck, it just has the power of Valve behind it. If you look at the Steam ecosystem, it is so utterly ginormous. I know that the specs for ROG Ally are better. I know that the price for what you get is pretty good. I know that it's Windows, so you've got all that Game Pass components with it. But still, I would peg, I don't expect ROG Ally to find as much success as Steam Deck or whatever the next Steam Deck, version 2 is going to be. I would still put it, below that. But I think this could be a very successful device. Yeah, I really, really do. We'll have to see how things go. But Highlander, I think there's definitely some potential there, especially if this partnership keeps going between Xbox and them. If they just keep saying, hey, play Game Pass games on your ROG Ally, like who knows? Maybe they even say something like that at like their June showcase. You never know. I could see Microsoft even doing something like that, depending on how strong the marketing is. If they're like, hey, you can play this on your Xbox, your PC, or the ROG Ally. Like, hey, it could definitely become a successful thing. And thank you for that, for being a member for 1 month, Highlander. Thank you so much. Casual Noob Gamer with a 199 super chat. How many double dippers do you see at retail for Tears of the Kingdom? Casual Noob Gamer, I'm not 100% sure what you mean there by double dippers. Do you mean like buying 2 copies of the game? Like, I guess one for sealed and one to have open? Or do you mean like buying a collector's edition in the regular game? It's hard for me to know exactly what you mean by double dippers. I would say if you just mean buying 2 versions of the regular game, not something I would expect much of at all. I do know that there are people that are buying collector's editions and leaving them sealed and still buying a regular version of the game, because some people do that with things they collect. I'm not one of those people. I buy collector's editions of some games. I'm getting it for Zelda, and I open my collector's editions because I want to enjoy the stuff in them. But, some people that are collectors, they want that thing sealed and mint, and that means a lot to them. So I would say for people buying collector's editions, there's some people doing that, but I wouldn't expect double dippers in like a huge way for Tears of the Kingdom. Not as much as Pokemon. Pokemon's going to have more double dippers since there's the 2 versions of the game. Whereas this is just, it's just Zelda either way. Like the game itself's the exact same. So I would say not a ton. If you mean something different, let me know in chat and I'll address that. But that's kind of how I see it. Jacob Novick here with a super chat. Actually, 2 super chats coming in from Jacob Novick. Thank you so much, Jacob. Hi, Benji. My best friend had a very deep depression and got through it completely because I was there for him. So I know I'm so sorry. Hope you're okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jacob. Very much. Like I said, currently it's not really a depression episode for me, even though I do have those sometimes. Right now it's an anxiety one. It's just a lot of anxiety. But that's awesome that you were there for your friend. I can tell you that having people, social interaction helps a lot. I've been trying to reach out ever since this started this last week. I've been trying to really talk to some people in my life, and it does help. So, Jacob, that means you're an awesome friend that you were there for him, because I can tell you, I guarantee you your friend appreciates that very, very much, because as someone that's going through some stuff myself right now, I value the people that are willing to talk to me a lot. It really, really helps. Whenever you're closed off in your own mind, things can start to spiral. And then a second super chat here from Jacob. Xbox just got, even if the Redfall disaster happens, 2 new profile pics and 1 profile background. One of the pics is of the middle part of the Redfall cover, matching the background perfectly in line. Awesome. Yeah, I know. I see that they're doing more of the backgrounds and stuff. I mentioned that, I think, in the last chat, that I really love that Xbox is still doing that sort of thing. It's a bummer, I think, that PlayStation has stopped that. I would love to see dynamic backgrounds on PlayStation 5 themed for games. I really, really like that. Now, the Xbox One, the bummer is that the layout has been so bad for a while that you can't even see most of those dynamic backgrounds. However, I know that's being addressed and that's being fixed, so I'm very, very glad to see that, because that was like the one miss on it. It's like, hey, you guys are doing these super awesome dynamic backgrounds, but I can't even see the thing because it's completely covered by the UI. So I'm glad that they're fixing that. But very cool. Very, very cool. And it's good to see that Xbox is still marketing Redfall, you know, even despite all the fallout from it, that they're still putting effort behind it. Because it's a first-party game. You don't want to just see them abandon it and ignore it. So it is the right thing for them to still put some stuff behind it, you know. Real Radic with a $6.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Real Radic. The Gran Turismo trailer got 15 million views on YouTube. Have we underestimated the overall public interest in this movie and box office predictions? I'm still not expecting like anything crazy from the Gran Turismo movie. You know, the closest comps that you're going to look at are going to be movies like Rush and Ford vs. Ferrari. And I know that there's a big gap between those. But so Ford vs. Ferrari's box office, it's actually pretty decent. All right, so Ford vs. Ferrari did a 225.5 million box office. Okay, so that's where Ford vs. Ferrari comes in. And then Rush would be the other comp that you kind of look at. And that one's obviously much smaller. That's a 98.2 million box office. Now, I think the brand recognition alone is obviously going to carry Gran Turismo a lot above Rush. But I'll be honest, if it can hit Ford vs. Ferrari numbers, that would be a smashing success in my opinion. I don't know exactly what the Gran Turismo movie budget is. Have they stated? Let's see. A lot of times we get the budgets for movies, but I don't know if they have gotten one yet for Gran Turismo. All right, I'm seeing one estimate that it's around 100 million. But I don't know if that's accurate. So that's just one estimate I'm seeing whenever I Google it. Which I wouldn't be shocked by. If it's around 100 million, that probably sounds about right. So, a little more expensive than I would want to spend on a Gran Turismo movie, if I'm being honest with you. I put it this way. To me, it really depends on budget. But if they didn't budget this thing out of control, I would say if it can hit Ford vs. Ferrari type numbers, which is those like, 225, 250 million, I think that would be a success. If this thing can get to 300 million plus, I mean, that would be an outstanding result for a racing movie. Racing movies don't tend to be like huge box office draws. Now, you can argue, hey, yeah, but those other racing movies don't have Gran Turismo as the brand behind it. But look at the movie I mentioned. It's Ford versus Ferrari, right? In the title, you have two massive brands in the title. You've got Ford in the title and you got Ferrari in the title. Those are some pretty huge brands. So, if I was PlayStation and if I was Sony and I was budgeting this movie like before we even got to release, I'd look at that as like our high bar. Like, hey, if we can hit this, like that's how I'd be setting the budget. If we can hit Ford versus Ferrari, then we consider this a really big success. I don't expect this to perform anywhere near Uncharted, which did 400 plus million. That would be a shocker to me. So we'll see, Real Radic. Right now, if I was to guess, I would guess it could probably get, if it's good, somewhere in that, 150 to 200 million. And if it can go even higher, then great. But we'll have to see. Like I said, racing movies don't tend to be like a huge genre for movies. All right, let me hit some member questions, and then I'll start getting on to your guys' free questions. David Taylor, member here with a very nice message. Say, hope you are feeling better. Well, thank you so much, David Taylor. like I keep saying, it's ups and downs. There's times I am, and then there's times I'm not. Right before I started the stream, I had a lot of anxiety. MD saying, hope you're doing better, Benji. We're all here for you. Well, thank you so much, MD. Very much appreciate that. Another member. J2 Blue in the Sky member here saying, what's up, Benji? What is up, J2 Blue in the Sky? Thanks for being a member. All right, and then one Benji member question, and then I will get to your guys' free questions. Benji here saying, according to Dexerto, I don't know how you pronounce it. That's how I've been pronouncing it, but it could be wrong. Gaming, Grand Theft Auto 6 budget is between 1 and 2 billion legit for you. This is hard to say. It's not impossible. Depending on like marketing. Now, that's clearly not just gonna be like development, right? That's going to also be Gary Sharp saying, did he say free questions? Yeah, the free questions, just the ones that people type in chat. I'm gonna get to those as soon as I finish this Benji member question. I don't know, man. $1 billion does seem like a lot. I am thinking that this is maybe just kind of an overestimation. It wouldn't shock me at all if we're seeing like way over 500 million, way over. $1 billion, though, is pretty crazy. Here's the thing. Grand Theft Auto 6, it can justify $1 billion budget, if we're being honest with you. I know that sounds utterly insane, but the amount of money GTA 6 is going to make, not just launch month, but for the next 10 years, is utterly colossal. So could they theoretically justify that? Sure. The marketing budget in particular for GTA 6 is going to be out of control. I expect when this game's getting ready to come out, you're going to see a marketing blitz like you've almost never seen for a game. They're going to want the entire planet to know GTA 6 is about to come out. You're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see commercials on TV for it. You're going to see ads on YouTube for it. You're going to see it on billboards. You're going to see it everywhere. Like, they're going to plaster this thing everywhere. So I can't even imagine what the marketing side of the budget's going to be. Hundreds of millions of dollars, absolutely. I'll pull back from the full 1 to 2 billion. I mean, that just seems very extreme, but you never know. You never know. No matter what, it's going to be, I mean, way over 500 million, way over. Once you combined development and marketing, it'll be way over that. Over $1 billion, though, I don't know. Tough to say. All right, now let's get to your guys' free questions. Leonardo Octavio Perez. First question, how many sales do you think Final Fantasy 16 will achieve at release? This is really hard to say. It's really hard to say because, like, on one hand, it's easy to think, hey, you know, PlayStation 5 has a much smaller install base than last-gen consoles did. So you would think that it would, you know, just launch much smaller, for example, than the last comparison we have is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because that was a PlayStation exclusive, and that was also just like Final Fantasy 16 is, and that is also the last big AAA Final Fantasy game. It's hard to compare it directly to Final Fantasy 15's launch because that was multi-platform. That was also on Xbox. It was not an exclusive. So to me, the number that I'm looking at is 7 Remake as the comparison, since this is now an exclusive. Now, we know that 7 Remake sold over 3 million at launch, and that was in how many days? How many days was that? Was that 2 weeks? First 3 days. Wow. Yeah, 3.5 million in first 3 days. But that was also on a much higher install-based PlayStation 4. And so it's easy to assume, hey, Final Fantasy VII Remake had all of the 7 nostalgia attached to it, and also that had a bigger install base than what PlayStation 5 has. However, we've seen examples that, hey, even though that the current gen install base isn't as massive, like for the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series or whatever, we've seen examples. We just saw one with Jedi Survivor that another factor you have to consider is how engaged is that audience, right? A lot of those PlayStation 4 gamers are very much more casual gamers. Right now, if you're an early adopter of a PlayStation 5, you're probably more likely to be a core gamer. Now, it's not a 100% statistical fact, but typically the people that are buying very late into a console's life cycle, if you're coming in on year 5, year 6, whatever, you are probably not a quote super core gamer because you waited until very deep into the gen to even get a console. So Jedi Survivor, when the UK numbers came out, people kind of reacted to those physical sales at first because they were down and they were like, oh, wow, this game underperformed. But then the digital data came in and it was actually 30% higher than the launch of Fallen Order, which is significantly higher than Fallen Order. And that was on a much smaller combined install base of PS5 and Xbox Series than PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were. So then that brings up, okay, yeah, the install base of PS5 is not as big as PS4, but those people that are on PS5 right now are very engaged, and Sony is marketing this very, very heavy as a big exclusive. Could it do it? I am still kind of thinking it's going to be a bit below 7 Remake, because 7 Remake just had so much nostalgia attached to it. So I'm going to say 2 to 3 million in the first reported period, whatever that ends up being, 3 days, a week, whatever. I think it is going to be smaller than 7 Remake's launch. Legs could be different. You never know if this game is like a legit Game of the Year contender, like some of us think it's looking like. It could potentially have great legs. JRPGs aren't typically known for amazing legs, but with how heavily this is being marketed as a huge PlayStation 5 exclusive, if it gets Game of the Year nominations, could see some strong legs. So for now, I'll predict good launch, but I do predict below 7 Remake, but I could be wrong. So I'll go 2 to 3 million in the first reported period. But it could be higher. If it's higher, that's incredible. I mean, if they come out and they're like, hey, this thing's shipped, 5 million units in 3 days, well then holy crap. But that would be a surprise to me. Cameron Swear, Benji, Zelda hype. Quick question, does Xbox report operating income? I'd like to compare to PlayStation and Nintendo. They don't actually report any numbers like directly for any of their stuff. Unfortunately, it's one of the big complaints that everyone always has about Xbox. People are always like, yeah, we get like vague percentage changes, but we don't actually get any hard numbers. So no, Microsoft themselves do not specifically tell you how much the Xbox division generates in any way, whether that's profit, whether that's revenue, whether it's any of it. However, you can kind of math it out, and people have been mathing it out for a long time, how much revenue at least they're generating. And the guys that you would want to look at for that would be Welfare and Dom's Playing, because I don't know off the top of my head. If you go to their Twitter accounts and just look at the last quarter, at least revenue figures, they can give you that. And they should have some other stuff they've mathed out as well. The way they're able to do that is because at one point in time we got a number, and all you have to do is just look at the percentage changes and you can kind of math it out. But no, Microsoft themselves do not state on their earnings, like, here's how much the Xbox division made in revenue, here's how much they made in profit, here's how much. They don't do that. Which is a bummer, because we do get that for other things, but we don't get it for Xbox. All right, so right now on that poll that I was running about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom launch sales, I asked how big is it going to launch. Right now, 39% of you think it's going to be bigger than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You guys think it's going to be #1, biggest launch ever for Nintendo. The most popular one on the poll, #2, is at 51%. That's the #2 biggest. So you guys are, the #1 vote right now is the same as me. #2 biggest, below Pokemon, but still the second biggest ever. That's kind of where I'm expecting to. And then 10% of you think it's going to be lower than Animal Crossing. So, yeah, I feel pretty confident in #2 or #1 even. I think there's a slim chance. #1 would be insane. I'm still going #2, but I'd be shocked if it's lower than Animal Crossing. I will tell you that. That would shock me. But you never know. SD, Benji, Zelda is a masterpiece. Nintendo has two franchises who every game is a 10 out of 10. Zelda and Mario, maybe Metroid. Let's say three franchises. Do you think the only platform holder closer to that level of quality is PlayStation? God of War and The Last of Us. I think Jim Ryan sees Nintendo as something he wants to achieve, and he is in the right path. Thoughts? Well, yeah, you have to be honest. Xbox just isn't close to either one of these right now. And that's unfortunate to say, but because I really, really like Xbox. But if you want to go with, first party output, Xbox is nowhere near either Nintendo or PlayStation's level yet. The thing that we keep hoping is that all of these acquisitions that Xbox has been doing for a long time is eventually going to get them there. And there are Xbox games I think are absolutely amazing. I was one of the vocal people that said that I thought Forza Horizon 5 should have been nominated for Game of the Year whenever it came out. I know that it's a racing game, but I thought that game was so good that it deserved a Game of the Year nomination that year. I absolutely loved it. I think all the Forza Horizon games are tremendous. I think that Hi-Fi Rush right now, it's one of my top 10 favorite games of the year. So it's not that Xbox has like zero amazing games that they release sometimes, but yeah, just in terms of consistent level of just super high quality, yeah, they're just not at either Nintendo or PlayStation's level yet. Hopefully they can get there. Now, do I think that Nintendo is in a league of their own in terms of like review scores? I mean, PlayStation has gotten pretty close, man. They've gotten pretty close. If you look at how the God of War games review, if you look at how Naughty Dog games reviewed, it's not even just The Last of Us. It's also when the Uncharted games review extremely high. Even games like Horizon and Spider-Man, they're not 90 plus, but they're very, very high. They're both like high 80s. They're like 88, 89. So they're close. Nintendo and PlayStation are pretty neck and neck, and you couldn't have said that, 15 years ago. It was not that way, but PlayStation has made a lot of ground on their first party, like a ton. I would still say that the biggest flagship Nintendo, like flagships that you're mentioning here, Zelda, Mario, those are probably still the number one locks in the industry to get 90 plus crazy reviews. I would still edge Nintendo just right above them, but it's almost like a 1A, 1B thing. Like PlayStation has gotten pretty close. They've gotten pretty close to being able to be like, those super flagship games are basically like Nintendo where you can lock it in, it's going to review high. It's now considered like a very rare thing for a PlayStation exclusive to review low from first party. You know what I mean? Like whenever you see a Days Gone was still not even terribly reviewed, by the way. Let me see what that's at Metacritic. It's low, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a disastrous review. And look at how much backlash that got. In terms of people being like, I mean, that's at a 71. It's not even like a horrendous Metacritic. 7 out of 10 is kind of like average. And that was seen as like this disaster scenario. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's very rare for a PlayStation game to not score extremely high. So they're pretty neck and neck. Now, is Jim Ryan like striving to be specifically like Nintendo? I don't think so, because I think Jim Ryan is actually like moving more towards like online and multiplayer and games as a service and that sort of thing. Not that they're going to abandon single player at all, but like Nintendo's so far behind the industry in regards to that. We talk about these companies all the time and they all have kind of different strengths and weaknesses. You just have to be honest. Nintendo is so vastly behind the industry in terms of online infrastructure and multiplayer that it's like just not even close. Now, Nintendo's great for local multiplayer, and they do have a big multiplayer hit in Splatoon, but, they don't have like near the online multiplayer ecosystem that PlayStation and Xbox have. So, definitely PlayStation wants super high quality. They're aiming to get super, super high quality. I'm sure that they admire Nintendo. You saw the PlayStation account today tweet about Zelda, which you almost never see PlayStation acknowledge any other brands. But I don't know that Jim Ryan specifically looks at Nintendo as like what he wants to be. Other than thinking that first party is definitely very important. I definitely think that he does believe that, which is pretty much what drives Switch. Third party doesn't have much impact on Switch sales. Not that they can't help, but most people are buying a Switch for first party games. That's just the reality. We got a Super chat here from Highlander. Thank you so much for the 5 super chat. With the rumor of the EU making an announcement on Monday on ABK, what is your guess, and will you do a show then? Will it help with CMA or FTC? Yeah, we'll have to see. There's a rumor that Europe is going to approve the merger very, very soon. That's the word on the street. I don't know this at all, but that's just what's being reported, is that Europe's going to come out and approve it. We'll have to see, man. That's big for Microsoft for fighting while they continue to fight with CMA and FTC. I mean, if here's what I've been saying, if Europe also moved to block, I think the deal's dead. At that point, I don't see how you're going to fight and win all 3 of those, right? FTC, CMA, and Europe. I believe if Europe came out and also said we're going to block, at that point, I think it is just truly dead. But if Europe comes out and approves this, I mean, it's a big feather in Microsoft's cap because Europe's not small. Now, it doesn't mean that the CMA and FTC are just now instantly beaten and this is definitely going to go through, but they at least have a power player on their side that they can kind of point to. And they can be like, well, Europe's, I know that each jurisdiction's different and you can't just say, hey, Europe passed this, so now CMA, you have to pass this. But it's at least a thing, an example, behind their backs that can help them. So I would say it's a good thing for Microsoft, but does it mean now that CMA and FTC are 100% just easy breezy, we're moving through? Not at all. Not at all. That's still going to be an absolute battle. They may be able to get it through still at FTC and CMA, but Europe by themselves does not guarantee that the others are going to follow suit. But the reason it's a big deal is, like I said, I think if Europe blocked, the deal's 100% dead. I think it's over at that point. If Europe did it too, I don't see how Microsoft's going to fight and win all 3 of those. That just seems impossible. So this is a must-win for them. So that means it's very good. Yes, it's a must-win. They absolutely have to have Europe approve this. If Europe does not, I think the deal's over. Now, will I do a show? I don't know. I'm playing it by ear, man. My anxiety is so bad right now that it's like every day I'm winging it. I'm in a bad spot right now, so I'm winging it. If I'm in a good place, then yes. If I'm in a bad place, then no. And I apologize for that. I'll be better soon at some point, but it's rough times right now. Guancos here with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Guancos. Trying to become a channel subscriber, but can't find where on the mobile app. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Can Xbox recover goodwill this year aside from big new games? Well, thank you so much for wanting to become a channel member. I think is what you mean. Because a subscriber, you should be able to just subscribe. If you mean that you want to be a channel member, that I'm not sure. I have heard that you kind of have to do that from desktop. Because for me, it's like on desktop, it shows up right beneath the video. Like the video's playing and beneath it, there's like a join button and you click join and then it'll let you become a member. But that is the only way that I know of. I know at one point, I think it wasn't on mobile. So maybe you do actually have to do that from desktop. If you are trying to do that, I very much appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Now, as to your question, can Xbox recover goodwill this year aside from big new games? Their showcase has to be tremendous. It's got to be tremendous. I feel like we say every year, this is the most important Xbox showcase, but this one feels pretty freaking important. After Redfall and after all of the delays that happened with those Xbox games last year that they said would be out in the next 12 months, Starfield did not make the window that they said it was going to. Forza Motorsport did not make the window that they said it was going to. Then you had Redfall have really poor reviews. You've seen Xbox hardware kind of slow. I know this all paints Xbox in like a doom and gloom scenario, but I've been on record saying I don't think they're doomed. I just think that they're going through some rocky waters right now. They can make it up, but that showcase, in terms of just goodwill, right? Now, an amazing showcase doesn't instantly mean all of Xbox's problems are solved, but that will go a long way to helping change the narrative, but it's got to be tremendous. I don't think they can come out here with a medium show. I don't think they can come out and do like a couple CG trailer announcements and really only show like gameplay for like maybe 1 or 2 games and of first party. Clearly they'll show way more than that, but I mean like with big first party AAA games, hey, we really only see like 2 or 3 big AAA games. They need to just like unload everything. If it's in a presentable state, I would show it all, man. I'd show Avowed, I'd show Fable, I'd show State of Decay, I just did whatever, I'd show it all. Obviously not something that's years and years away. It is nowhere remotely ready to be shown. But if this game is remotely showable, Perfect Dark, Fable, Avowed, Everwild, all of them, I would just be showing it all, dude. I would just go all out. I would just show everything that's remotely ready to be shown. Not all of it has to be huge blowouts, but at least all these games that they've announced for years that we've just literally never seen, just show it all, dude. Show it all, because they got to start getting positive brand momentum, because I do think that they've taken some pretty massive hits to brand momentum. There's other areas where they're still doing very, very well in, but specifically that word, momentum, it does not feel like Xbox has it right now, and they need to get that. So yeah, that showcase is very important. Very important. That and great games. Obviously, Starfield has to be amazing. If they come out and the showcase that I'm talking about is absolutely tremendous and awesome, but then Starfield releases in September and it's a bad game, which I don't expect at all, but if it was, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, it was a great showcase, but the games are still not living up to what we want. So the games still also have to deliver, right? Starfield's got to be amazing. Hellblade 2, which seems like we don't know, but it seems like that's not that far away. It's got to be amazing. Forza Motorsport's got to be amazing. So the games, that's just like an automatic lock. They have to be amazing. But they also need this showcase to be very, very good. All right. Super chats are cleared. Thank you so much, guys. Back to the free questions. Logan Hardy, hey Benji, with more than 10 live service games coming from PlayStation, how much successful does even one game could be for the live service initiative to be successful for Sony? Thanks. It is a lot. One reason I suspect that there is a lot is Sony has to know that some of these just aren't going to hit. We've seen that live service has actually become a huge challenge. There was this point in the industry, I've talked about this on this chat before, that there was a point in time in the industry where it was seen that single player games were the risky thing, and that going into multiplayer and live service, that was like the easier win. Like, oh yeah, it's really hard to sell a $70, or not 70 back then, but it's very hard to sell like a $60 single player experience. It's all about multiplayer now and online, and we're going to just be greenlighting that stuff and kind of doing that, and we're going to move a little bit away from single player. That was like a belief in the industry. In fact, you even had EA just literally outright state it. Not even just, oh, you can tell that this is how they think because the games they're releasing. No, like EA literally said on record, like, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So there was that belief for a while. However, that has turned out to not be accurate. I'm just telling you that right now, it's not true. Multiplayer games are not more safe at all to make in terms of being financially successful. In fact, I think they're actually more dangerous. I think multiplayer games now, and this could change, just like there was a belief in the past. Maybe new data will come in and I'll change my mind. But I actually think right now, big multiplayer games that cost a fortune to make, because one thing is people are always like, oh, the single player games are so much more expensive than the multiplayer. That's not true at all. It depends on the scope of the multiplayer project. Some of these multiplayer projects, the amount of devs that you have to have on this game, if you're going for a live service, it's not like a single player game where you develop it in 4 years or whatever, ship the game and move on to the next project. If you're trying to go for a true live service, it's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of devs every single year having to support this game, every single year of content, and just going and going and going. It's not safe at all. Multiplayer is very high risk, and nowadays. And that's partially because we have so many big, huge, giant, successful single player games. I think it's becoming very hard to pull people off of them. For single player experiences, people beat a single player game and they want to experience the next one, right? Whatever that is, whatever the next single player game that you want to play is. It could be any genre, anything, any whatever. The people though that are playing Fortnite, they just keep coming back to Fortnite. And the people that are playing Apex Legends, they just keep coming back to Apex. And the people that are playing Destiny, they just keep coming back to Destiny. And the people you see what I'm saying? We have so many big established multiplayer games now that if you launch a brand new one, I've got a brand new brand new giant multiplayer service game out there, you have to somehow convince because there's not an infinite number of people out there. You have to somehow convince those people that are already playing Fortnite, or they're already playing Apex, or they're already playing Call of Duty, and that's just their game. Them and their friends get on there and they get in party chat and they play every day or they play every week. You have to somehow convince them to start doing less of that and now come play our game. That's a tough ask, man. That's a tough ask when people are already so invested in playing Fortnite with their buddies every night. You know what I mean? So that doesn't mean new multiplayer live service games can't find success. They absolutely can. I still think it's worth companies pursuing and trying to make new games, because someone had to make Destiny in order for that to happen. Someone had to make Fortnite and Apex in order for that to happen. So it's still worth a venture worth trying. I would be very cautious, though, to companies going too all in on this, because a lot of these are going to fail. And we're already seeing examples of that industry-wide. We're already seeing a lot of these live service games start to fail that have been launched in the last year or two. So I think part of the reason why Sony has 10 live service, if they're smart business people, which I know Sony are, they know those aren't going to all work. Right? If they're truly like big multiplayer live service, because live service can mean a lot of things. And that's another thing that I saw, I think it was Herman Holst say, when he said people keep latching on to like the live service, but we look at them as different things. Like live service doesn't mean one thing. But if they're expecting, let's say they're making 10 games that they want to have the life of a Fortnite or an Apex or a Destiny, I'd be shocked if half get there. I'd be shocked. So we'll have to see, Logan. They definitely, I think they can probably pull a couple successful ones out of this. I have a feeling the Last of Us multiplayer game will be a big success. That's clearly one of the 10 live service games. The IP is already so strong. People already liked the regular Last of Us multiplayer, and this sounds way more ambitious. That to me seems like a pretty much lock. It'll do well. But some of these other ones, like some of these new IPs, we know that Haven's making a new IP that's live service. We know that Firewalk's making a new IP that's live service. You know, those are going to be risky a bit. Even if they're great games, it's hard to find a lot of success in multiplayer right now. Okay. We have a couple more super chats that have come in. Dead Planet with a 2 super chat. Should Xbox do some sort of teaser trailer for June? I think they probably will. Don't they normally have some sort of little like hype trailer that they put out before? I would say like a hype trailer, sure, but I don't think they should tease like actual announcements there. I mean, they could. They could if it's like an already announced game. Because you see like Jeff Keighley do that for like the Game Awards, for example. He'll be like, see, you know, you can see blah, blah, blah at the Game Awards. Maybe if Microsoft wanted to change it up, they could do a hype trailer that's just like confirms something like, you know, see Hellblade 2 at the Xbox showcase. You know, see, you know, maybe they could do that. But I think people kind of also like to just be surprised during the show. So I would say no, other than like maybe a hype video where it's just like some cool like graphics and like, you know, Xbox showcase and see Starfield, because that's like already confirmed there's a Starfield Direct. But I wouldn't like show games or tease new announcements, like actually like kind of showing what that might be. I would just say that for everyone to be hyped in June. Thank you for that super chat. Highlander with a 5 super chat. What do you expect at Microsoft Showcase? Will it be all first party, and do you expect any surprises? Tired of Gears, Forza, and Halo at the show. It's definitely not going to be all first party. There will be third party games there. I would expect the vast majority of the third party games that are there are Game Pass deals. That's kind of just seems to be Microsoft's go-to now for marketing, is like basically the only third party games they heavily market are Game Pass titles. So I would assume definitely there's going to be third party. There's going to be a lot of third party content there. There was a lot of third party at last year's showcase too, but it's pretty much going to be mostly, I would say, mostly Game Pass titles. So whatever they've got deals on Game Pass. There might be some stuff there that's not Game Pass related, but I would expect the vast majority of the third party content to be Game Pass deals. Now, in terms of surprises, absolutely. I'd be shocked if Gears is here because you said Gears, Forza, and Halo. I'd be shocked if Gears is here. I'm not expecting Gears 6 to be here yet. That's probably a game that gets announced next year. Forza will obviously be here because they have to put a release date on it. And I don't expect any Halo presence at the show either. There is that other project that they've got working on with Certain Affinity or whatever. Didn't really think about that. Forza is a lock because they got to release date it. Halo, there's a slim chance that there actually is something Halo here now that I think about it. But yeah, there's going to be surprises. My question is, in terms of like surprises, not like updates on games we know, like Perfect Dark and Fable. My question is when in the heck is Compulsion going to announce their game? That would be a surprise, I think, because it needs to happen. When did We Happy Few come out, dudes? They've been going for a while. Guys, We Happy Few released in 2018. The full game was released on PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One in August 2018. Yeah, August 2018 was when the full game released, not like the early access. So it's like, dude, it's been 5 years. Not 5 years since they released the game. Like in terms of like, oh, you know, the game's about to come out. It'll be 5 years and they haven't even announced a game. Like, if Compulsion's not there, they must be in literal development hell. Because if it's not there, I would assume that means it's definitely not releasing this year. That would mean it's, or not just this year, probably not in the next 12 months. So how long is that game going to be in development? 7 years? So, you know, we'll see. But yeah, hopefully that's there. I would say Compulsion should be a surprise that's there. If they're not there, I would be very worried about the state of that game, if I'm being honest with you. That's an extremely long time to go without even announcing a game. Going 5 years between releasing games is not unheard of by any means. But going 5 years without even announcing a game is not normal. That's not typical. Doesn't mean it never happens, but that's not a normal thing. So Compulsion should be there. Again, if not, I'm worried about them. And other surprises from first party? I mean, we know In Exile's working on an RPG. You never know, that could be there. I don't know. We'll see. That's the main one that sticks out to me, though. Compulsion. Compulsion needs to be there. If they're not there, what is going on at that studio? Player slot available here with a super chat. Pearl Abyss chose to focus on releasing Crimson Desert before Doke V. Do you think that is wise? CD equals Witcher 3 clone. Doke V equals AAA Pokemon competitor. Yeah, I know. I'm aware of both of these games. I wonder what happened with Doke V, because I remember when that trailer got shown at, was it Gamescom? It was either Gamescom or the Game Awards, because it was one of Jeff Keighley's shows. And I remember like people were kind of memeing it, right, whenever they showed it, because it was like weird. It had this like K-pop song going, and like it was like looked like a lot of like kids dancing around and stuff, and people were like, what is this game? The graphics were like amazing, but it was just not something that core gamers usually attach themselves to. And I remember when I tweeted out the metrics from the show, because I do that a lot of times on these big shows, I'll like compile trailer views after 24 hours or whatever. Doke V was like one of the most popular things there. It did huge views. So this to me seemed like a game that like, there's a lot of interest surprisingly for this. This could be potentially very successful. And then it kind of disappeared. And yeah, it does, like you said, it seems they're focusing on this Crimson Desert game. Is it smart? I don't know. It's hard to say. Doke V, to me, seemed like it had a lot of... Like I said, I know it sounds weird. People watching this chat were probably not that hyped for Doke V, but the viewership was great on it. So it seemed like that had a lot of momentum, and then they've really pulled back on it. You know, it's kind of... Because that was a while ago. That was like, what? Was that 2 years ago that they showed that trailer? and it's kind of gone. I don't know. This is a great question, player slot. I don't know if this was the right choice or not. Maybe they're having a lot of issues just figuring out what Doke AV is going to play like, and maybe Crimson Desert is just like a lot more straightforward of a project, so that's why they're focusing on that. It could be something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe Doke AV is still something that they're trying to figure out exactly how they're going to get it working and how it's going to play and what's going to make it unique, whereas Crimson Desert does look a lot more traditional. So we'll see. But yeah, it is a bit surprising that that game disappeared. Jacob Novick, thank you. That's like your 4th super chat, Jacob. I got the new Xbox UI in beforehand, free Insider app. If you turn off backgrounds, 99% of the game icons show as big backgrounds when hovered over. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't gotten the new UI yet. Have they said when that's going to come out to public? I'd imagine not too far away. Feedback I've heard, though, is mostly very, very positive. The stuff I've seen from it looks great. It looks like a huge improvement over the current UI. The current UI is just ugly. I don't like it. I know it's functional, but it doesn't look good. And I know that's like a weird thing to focus on, but part of interacting with the UI is, hey, how it looks. And yeah, the current one, it's super functional, but don't look great. That new one, though, does look great. So I'm glad to hear the good things. Benji with a 2 super chat. Is the secret console with sharp screen Switch 2? Yeah, I'm not sure. So we can talk about Switch 2 for a second since we got a bit of an update. I'll run another poll on this one. So it appears that Switch 2 is not coming out this fiscal year. Nintendo basically said as much. And that has caused a debate. So when is Switch? Let's start a new poll now that we have more info on that, because a lot of people, myself included, I actually thought it was going to be this fiscal year, maybe. What I kept saying is that I definitely expect this console to be 2024. Like, absolutely. I said it wasn't going to come this year, but I was like, I do expect this in 2024, and I think there's a chance that it's going to come in those first 3 months of the year, which would make it in the fiscal year. However, Nintendo have said it's not going to be this fiscal year. So that doesn't rule out, by the way, still, that it can't come in the first half of next year, because it could come out after March. Just because it was March last time doesn't mean like that's now set in stone and Switch 2 also has to launch in March. They could launch it in April. They could launch it in May. I honestly think, I know this sounds weird, I think Nintendo can launch Switch 2 any month of the year and instantly sell out every console they ship. They'll have no issues selling out of Switch 2. So, you know, it didn't have to come out in March to still be a first half of the year release date. So I'm curious what you guys think. So now that we know that it's not this fiscal year, so it is going to be after March, I'm going to ask, when will Switch 2 launch? We'll say still first half of 2023. So you still think it's going to be after March, but it's still going to be in that first half of the year, so probably April or May. June does seem like it'd be a bit weird to do a summer launch, but I think April or May could work, to be perfectly honest with you. We'll say second half of I meant to say 2024. I put 2023 because this is obviously next year. Second half of 2024, or we'll say you're still 2025. There's no chance this thing's 2025. But I'll still put it just in case some of you are still holding out that it's 2025. All right, so when will Switch 2 launch? Still first half of 2024, second half of 2024, or 2025. Now, the sharp screen. I did not actually see this report, Benji. What? There's a screen, like Sharp, the company is making a screen for a handheld device. That's interesting. I mean, could it be for the Switch 2? Sure. It could also be for a PC handheld, because we are seeing those start to pop up. We're seeing more and more of these PC handhelds hit the market. Who makes the screen for the current Switch? I'm not exactly sure. So Benji, I know this isn't a great answer, but hey, it got me onto the idea of a poll. I would say, sure, there's a chance that Sharp could be making the screen for it, but I'm not sure. Not sure on that. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat. Hope you're doing well, Benji. No question today. Ups and downs, up and downs, my friend. Fighting my way through it. I'll get past this. I always do. I always get past it. That's what I just have to keep telling myself. I will get past this. It's not the end of the world. I will make it. I just got to keep fighting and be strong. So thank you so much, Timmer. I really appreciate it, man. I'm doing all right. I would say not great at all, but okay. And I hope you're doing well, buddy. Brad Davis, great to see you, Brad, with a $4.99 super chat. Any chance of Forza being a stealth launch in June with a laughing emoji? That's a pretty interesting idea, Brad. Does a traditional Forza game really need a typical build-up now, considering Horizon's popularity? This is a pretty fascinating question, Brad, that I hadn't considered. What I think is going to happen, Brad, and this is just theory here, I think Forza isn't going to be a stealth launch. I think it's going to be a really fast turnaround launch, though. I think it's going to launch in July or August. I do still think this is slated for the summer. That has not been confirmed by Microsoft, but it just seems like a summer game to me, especially with Starfield being September. I will say if it's not in the summer, I think that probably rules out Hellblade 2 for this year. Because there's a lot of people, myself included, thinking, hey, Hellblade 2 might be coming out this holiday. Microsoft themselves even seemingly teased that in a new Game Pass ad, where every game in the Game Pass ad was a game launching in 2023, but Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 was interestingly in that trailer. And like I said, every other game in the trailer was a 2023 release. And that kind of lines up with some of the rumblings we've heard that this game is kind of targeting fall/holiday 2023. If it's not summer, I think that probably means that Hellblade 2 ain't coming not this year, right? Maybe it's early next year, but because that'd be pretty weird to have Starfield in September and then let's say Forza in October and then Hellblade in November. Like, that would just be a lot of first party right on top of themselves. Not impossible to do that, but you have to wonder if you want to give them a little more breathing room than just bam, 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 like 1 month apart. So I'm still predicting that Forza comes in July or August. I think it'll just have a super short release date announcement to release window. A stealth drop, though, I don't hate your idea, Brad. I think the only issue with a stealth drop for Forza is typically a game that does see a retail launch. Like even Forza Horizon 5, they sell a retail disc. And I know that Xbox has a much less of a physical presence than they used to. Everyone's moving away from physical, but Xbox even like more so for first party because of Game Pass and because of the Series S. They're like very digital heavy nowadays. So the only wild card here for me, like it kind of made sense, Hi-Fi Rush getting a stealth launch because it's not a game that typically has a big retail presence, but Forza usually does. So that's right now what I'll predict, Brad, is that it's a June or July, or not June, it's either, or maybe even late June. No matter what, summer. I think Forza will be summer, but a stealth drop's not a bad idea. I think it could be successful as a stealth drop. Because like you said, you don't need a huge marketing push. The only thing I think will need a marketing push for this Forza, if the rumors are true, the rumors is that this Forza Motorsport has like a way overhauled single player, which is, I think it's desperately needed. Forza Motorsport, the Horizon games are still really fun because there's still a sense of progression through it. You know, you're moving through the festival and you're unlocking new things. Forza Motorsport, I thought, kind of started to feel fairly stale. The single player experience just didn't really feel evolved. I hope the rumblings are true that the single player is massively overhauled and you're like working through somewhat of a story-ish. Not like it's a racing game, so it's not gonna have this deep story, but like unlocks and stuff like Gran Turismo, I thought had a pretty fun, Gran Turismo 7 had a pretty fun single player element. I hope that's true. So they might want to market that pretty heavy because they're going to have to convince some people, I think, to get on board with Motorsport because Horizon's just so much more fun especially if you're a single player. Like, it's just way more fun. Forza Horizon's way more fun to play than Motorsport. The simulation's cool, but again, and maybe online, you know, Forza Motorsport is like super fun for competitive racers. But I mean, as a single player myself, It's just nowhere near as fun as Horizon. So I think they need to pull people like me into motorsport and make us excited for it. And the way to do that is to overhaul that single player. All right, back to some free questions. Let me see. Let me make sure I didn't miss any members. Let me make sure every member's had at least one question answered. Highlander says, newsflash, Benji confirmed Hellblade 2 at Microsoft Showcase LMAO. I think there's a strong chance. Basically, what I've been predicting is that you won't see Hellblade 2 in an Xbox Showcase again until it has a release date. So if you see Hellblade 2 at this showcase, I think it's getting a release date. The main reason I say that is because we've seen Hellblade 2 now so many times. We saw it back with the original announcement with the Xbox Series consoles. We saw it at, wasn't it the Game Awards where they did that big gameplay reveal? They've shown, they did like a little dev diary thing on it on one of the Xbox showcases. Plus, they just did this thing with Unreal Engine. I don't think that they'll like do Hellblade 2 again until they're ready to release date it. So if it is at this showcase, I do think you're getting a release date. I think Hellblade 2 will finally have a release date. If it's here. I don't know if it's here, but if it's here, I think you'll get a release date for it. All right, yeah, all members have had at least one question answered. So back to some free questions. I'm going to go for about 15 more minutes, guys, and then I'm going to go. Thanks for being here with me. You guys are actually helping my anxiety by having someone to talk to. Help take my mind off things. One thing for poor Benji, when do you think is the PS Showcase announcement? And what about that Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania exclusive rumor? If that's true, oh boy, Silent Hill already exclusive, Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania would be crazy. You think it's true, and what you think about Xbox sales numbers in Japan recently, they aren't good. I think are worse than Xbox One era, even PS4 is selling more, WTF. So several questions here, but I do have thoughts on pretty much all of them. Okay, let's go one at a time. So when do I think the PS Showcase announcement will be? Next week. If it really is the week of the 25th, they'll probably announce it a week beforehand, which would be next week. So I expect that you're going to get that announcement next week. I don't know what day, but someday next week. Someday next week, Sony will announce the show, if it's true. If you don't get an announcement next week, it ain't happening the week of the 25th, in my opinion, because that would be like they'd have to announce it the same week that the showcase is going on. They'll want people to be hyped up. They'll want people to have set plans. They'll want people to have time to be like, okay, I need to be at my computer or whatever at this time to watch this showcase. So next week, sometime next week, you're going to get that announcement if it's really the 25th. Now, do I think that the Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania rumors are true? Here's one thing I can say. So I say all the time how I'm not like a super insider. I don't do the work to find out inside info or anything like that. However, there's often times that I do get inside info, and that's just because I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people just share stuff with me sometimes. And I don't pursue it. I'm not a guy that's like trying to find this stuff. One thing I can say is I knew exactly what was going on with Silent Hill. Years before it was announced, by the way. Not like, oh, I found out 6 months before they announced Silent Hill 2 Remake and the next Silent Hill game. Like I knew exactly every project that was in development for Silent Hill years before that was announced. I knew the whole roadmap for Silent Hill. I know kind of how some of that came together. Like how, not every detail, but I kind of know how that whole exclusivity and stuff kind of came to be a thing. Knowing that info, would it surprise me at all if these Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania rumors are true? No, wouldn't shock me at all. Now, what I can say is, despite having that inside information on the Silent Hill franchise and exactly what was going on there, I do not have inside info on Metal Gear Solid or Castlevania. That I am not, I don't have that confirmed to me. I don't know that these are true rumors. But what I can say is using the info that I had on what went down with Silent Hill, it wouldn't shock me at all if this is true. No, because I know kind of how that deal came together a little bit. So it wouldn't surprise me. No, Metal Gear Solid and Castlevania absolutely could be PlayStation exclusives. Yeah, that's possible. Again, don't run to the bank with this because I actually don't know that. I haven't had anyone tell me that. It's just using what I know about what happened with Silent Hill. I could definitely see it. Yeah, I could. It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. When I heard that rumor, I'm like, that kind of makes sense. It wouldn't surprise me. So we'll have to see. I don't know, but it won't shock me at all. And the Xbox sales numbers in Japan, yeah, they're very bad. They're very bad. You know, Xbox Series had a lot of momentum for a while, but it's really fallen off. In Japan in particular. That's why, like I said, this showcase needs to be dang good, dude. Needs to be dang good. Brewby, hey Benji, do you feel that Tears of the Kingdom can reach 15 million this weekend worldwide, of course? How fast did Pokemon do 20? Pokemon, it was a couple weeks, right? I know it was its first quarter, but how many weeks was that? Six weeks. So 6 weeks to hit 20 million. 15 million this weekend? Damn. I mean, if it does 15 million this weekend, holy Jesus. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's tough to say. It's going to be colossal, though. It's going to be colossal. That's for sure. But an actual weekend number, I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know if Nintendo will report a weekend number or not. They might, because it's going to be a record breaker. So they might actually give you the weekend. But they may wait. They may wait and do a couple weeks and then give you a number. So I don't know. 15 million this weekend's hard to say, but it will be crazy. No matter what it's going to be, it's going to be utterly insane. I'd hope we get a weekend number. I'd love to get a 3-day number for it, like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'd love to get that. Hopefully they give it to us. The Zombie Plus, Benji, how much money Destiny generates? Almost always is in the top 5 of Steam, sales-wise and player-wise. Right now is in the top 20 as people waiting for the new season. And what do you think will happen to Bungie if Marathon and Matter are Destiny-like success? You think those $3.6 billion Sony was one of Sony's best decisions, or they overpaid? They absolutely did not overpay on Bungie. I saw some people theorizing that whenever the $3 billion was announced, and I was like, they ain't overpaying at all. Destiny's massive. And that's not even counting, right, the potential of other franchises. Just Destiny alone is colossally huge. Now, I know a lot of people in the Destiny community are kind of getting tired of the game for various reasons. I only know this because I actually fell off Destiny. I kind of feel bad about it because I really like Bungie, but I talked about before, I think they have the worst onboarding of new and returning players for almost any game I've ever seen. And I feel bad saying that, but like I was someone that played Destiny 1 religiously, like every expansion, constantly. And then I played Destiny 2 all the way up until it was one of the light expansions. What is the name of that one? What is the name of that one? Beyond Light. I played Destiny 2 all the way up until the Beyond Light expansion. And then I fell off because I got distracted playing other things, and I didn't get to Witch Queen like at launch. Like I didn't play anything. I didn't play like after I finished the Beyond Light campaign, I didn't do the other seasons, and I didn't do the Witch Queen expansion. And then after Witch Queen came out and people were like raving about it and stuff, I was like, okay, I'm going to get back into Destiny 2 and I'm going to play this expansion. So I booted Destiny 2 up and I loaded it in, and I had only not been playing the game for like what, I don't know how long that would have been, how much time Beyond Light and Witch Queen were, what was it, like a year or something? And this is coming from someone that knows Destiny. I had no idea what the F was going on. I had no idea what the F was going on. I had no idea how the F I could catch back up and figure out what's new on the gameplay and what in the heck is happening in the story. And I uninstalled it and have never played it since. It's just such a problem for Destiny. I mean, they've deleted so much content from the original game. Like I think it's the worst in the industry. As good as Bungie is at some things, I think their onboarding experience is the worst one in the industry. So That's something that I hope that they can improve in the future, whether it's Destiny or these other games they're making. They got to do better about that because it's so bad. You're just thrust into this and have no idea what the hell is going on. And that's someone that's familiar with Destiny. I can only imagine what it's like for someone that literally doesn't know anything about Destiny. When you boot into that game, you're probably like, what the hell? So, Destiny's huge. It's going to keep being huge, but I think they are going to start to run into some problems if they can't make it more accessible in some ways. Marathon and Matter, we'll have to see. They both could be huge successes or they could be huge failures. The thing I like to think about that people mention sometimes is if Bungie can find success with multiple big multiplayer IPs, they could kind of become Sony's Blizzard. Now, obviously, they're not going to have the pedigree or the prestige of Blizzard. That would take many, many years to build up, but it could be a good comparison. They could be like PlayStation's Blizzard, where they're making multiple huge multiplayer, IP, because that's really what drives Blizzard. It's not single player, even though single player is amazing component of Blizzard's games. You can play Diablo completely single player and it's awesome, but what is it? It's stuff like World of Warcraft and Overwatch and Diablo, which is heavily online, and StarCraft, which has a huge online component. Like Blizzard's like a huge multiplayer company. So Bungie could kind of become Sony's Blizzard if they can find success with multiple IPs, though. That's the key. If it's only Destiny and these other two don't hit big, then they're still a great developer, but they're not quite like that Blizzard type developer. We'll have to see, though. Dude, hey Benji, thoughts on the whole Redfall Zelda controversy? Well, it just depends what you mean. If you mean like why there was controversy that Redfall's 30 FPS and not Zelda, I think for a couple reasons. First of all, to me, there isn't ever a controversy with 30 FPS on a personal level. I don't care if a game's 60 FPS or not. I understand that some people really, really do. I personally don't care. I played the Horizon Forbidden West expansion, Burning Shores. I just played that, and you can choose between 60 and 30, and I chose 30 because I wanted all the bells and whistles and it to look the absolute best because Horizon's so pretty, and I don't mind 30 FPS games. I just started Jedi Survivor, and I picked the 30 FPS option because it looks a lot better than the 60 FPS option. Now, that's not 100%, for every game. I want my multiplayer games to be 60. I don't think multiplayer games should ever be 30 because it's competitive. But, a single-player game, I just don't care if it's 30 FPS. So for me, on a personal level, it doesn't really matter that Redfall's 30 FPS. Could not care. Now, why there was a larger controversy that Redfall took so much heat for 30 but Zelda didn't, I think it's probably a couple reasons. First of all, you just have to know what you're getting with the Switch. Like, there's different expectations for the hardware. The Switch is so much weaker than an Xbox Series X that it's like, it's not even in the same stratosphere in terms of power. Like, the power gap between a OG Switch and an Xbox Series X is colossal in every category, whether it's the GPU, the CPU, the RAM, the storage. It's just an enormous gulf. So you're just going to assume that games on Switch are going to run worse. It's coming with the territory. There's no doubt about it. It's going to have worse graphics. Art style is debatable, but we're talking on a technical perspective. The graphics are going to be worse. The frame rates on many games are going to be worse. The loading is going to be slower. That's just what you're getting with the hardware. It's just, you know what the hardware gap is. So I think part of it's that people are just a bit more understanding that when they're buying games on Switch, they're not expecting cutting edge. Art style is amazing. Nintendo has incredible art style, but in terms of a technical standpoint, you just know, hey, it's a Switch. It's a very old console. So that's part of it. And I think the other part of it, like why Redfall got so much heat specifically, is because I think Redfall is not a cutting edge looking game. If Redfall looked like the most mind-blowing thing you've ever seen, if the graphics were like face melting, then there would, of course, always be pushback from some people about 30 FPS for 60 FPS. But you would have a lot more understanding, I think, people being like, well, look at this game. I mean, it's drop dead freaking gorgeous, ray traced everything, and, whatever. You would understand it more. But I think since Redfall, while it might have a pretty good art style at times, does not technically look impressive at all. It's not a technical marvel. So it's more like confusion. It's like, hey, this console is extremely powerful. It's the Xbox Series X, a console that Microsoft's been talking about how powerful it is for so long. This game visually does not look like it's pushing the envelope at all, and there's still no 60 FPS. That's why I think it got so much pushback, because all of those factors combined. It was like, you could understand if Hellblade 2 ships at 30 FPS only. I'll be honest, I think people will probably understand. It looks utterly insane. People are going to want a 60 FPS option. There will be some pushback if it's 30 FPS only, but you'll have a lot of people be like, yeah, well, look at it. I mean, it looks like that. I can understand why it's 30 FPS. Redfall does not look anything like a Hellblade 2 in terms of graphic fidelity. So it's a lot harder, for people to look at that and be like, how can this not have a 60 FPS option? I think those are the reasons. All right, I got to wrap it up. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Oh, yeah, and Benji makes a good point. Also, the fact that Redfall is marketed as a 60 FPS game, that's a very, very good point. And same thing, JCat says that too. Yep, that's another factor as well. I think, though, even if they would have always shown that game at 30 FPS, then I still think there would have been backlash. Just because the game doesn't look visually like it shouldn't not have a 60 FPS option. I'm just being honest. The visuals don't really justify 30 FPS only. And I know there's way more going on with the game, getting it to 60 than just visual fidelity. But we've seen games that just frankly look better than Redfall that are running at 60 on these consoles. So, But yes, you're absolutely correct on that too. Forgot about that too. Microsoft showed the game at 60. Like every time they showed it was 60. So that's going to also bring expectations. So, yep, that too. All right, guys, I think I got to bounce. I wish I could do more questions, but I got to go to work today. I really, really appreciate everyone that turned out for the chat. Thank you, JCat, for helping mod the channel. See you in there now. Thanks, guys, for all the support lately. It's been rough for me. I feel like I'm definitely not out of the woods yet. Trying to get there. I will get there at some point. But stick with me. It could be another rough week or two. I don't know. We'll see how things shake out. But it could still be some rough times ahead. But we'll see. I'm going to do the absolute best I can, guys. All right. Thank you so much for all of the super chats. Thank you for all of the channel members on the channel. I apologize to all the free questions I couldn't get today because there's just a ton that I couldn't get to. Yeah, I got to bounce there. All right. As always, everyone, stay safe. Play some games, and I will catch you guys either here on YouTube next week, or I will see you all on Twitter very soon. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.